Api, even though. Chitta, Tanvo, in both mind and body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the breeze, even though. Chitta, Tanvo, in both mind and body. Translation. How do I stop hearing myself?
I just paused the video. You should be good.
Let's turn the volume down.
Let's stream it up.
When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulasi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change in both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. Purport. It appears from this verse that the four Kumaras were impersonalists, or protagonists of the philosophy of monism, becoming one with the Lord. But as soon as they saw the Lord's features, their minds changed. In other words, the impersonalist who feels transcendental pleasure in striving to become one with the Lord is defeated when he sees the beautiful transcendental features of the Lord. Because of the fragrance of his lotus feet, carried by the air and mixed with the aroma of tulasi, their minds changed. Instead of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, they thought it wise to be devotees. Becoming a servitor of the lotus feet of the Lord is better than becoming one with the Lord. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vichaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayambhakada Mayam Dadati Swapadatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vikamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vrajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishwakan Vikamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripye Vanchakapatarubhischa Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravantinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So the program that Srila Prabhupada gives for practicing Krishna consciousness is so important because it protects the devotees from Maya. When before the Thanksgiving marathon started, I got the good fortune to be at the Vyas Puja of my spiritual master, His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami. And when I was leaving to go on the plane to come back to Krishna life to dive into the marathon, which had started that day, I went to Maharaj's office and I asked. I was helping out with something with his computer, and then just before I left, I asked him, kind of like begging if he could somehow or other give me some sort of like a special or extra protection from Maya, because I don't want to, I was asking that, I want to somehow engage in his service my whole lifetime and not fall away due to like women or some other distraction, whatever the usual ones are in the material world. And he was saying that one thing he was telling me is that I can't only do Sankirtan, but it also, because the book distribution in Sankirtan is there, but he said I can't only do that. Like that's the only activity that I do all the time, but I also have to have I have to be engaged in the program, the program that Srila Prabhupada set up. So, that means chanting good rounds and then having a nice morning program, hearing the class. All these things are set up in such a way that they inoculate us from the contamination of the material energy. And then even still, when we do all those things, still it seems like, some germ, some coronavirus of material contamination can still creep in past that inoculation that we got from the morning. So that it just goes even further to show how much we need to somehow or other be fully absorbed in the Krishna consciousness program that Srila Prabhupada has laid out. Sometimes devotees have all sorts of different like doubts and confusions and misconceptions, and they'll bring them up in a challenging way to other devotees, and make a whole big fuss about some difficulty or whatever, or why something doesn't make sense in Krishna consciousness, or why we should have room to be lax about something, or why we should all have a beard, or and whatever. But often when devotees bring up all these things, uh, the the whole argument or whatever it can be, it just can be solved very shortly if someone just asks, well, how is your japa, or how is your morning program, or how is your whatever. Because so many when people leave so many gaps, so much room for Maya, then Maya creeps in. So uh yeah, the morning program, all these programs given by Srila Prabhupada are really important. So I was mentioning that because we're hearing the four Kumaras speaking about, or well, we're hearing what happened with them. They smell the tulsi leaves on the feet of the Lord, and then there's a change in their heart, in their mind. Uh, I read this really cool verse actually to elaborate a little bit more on what that change is before I make this point. But this is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in this verse. When the sweetness of the Lord's body produced in them a level of astonishment much higher than the bliss of Brahman, it penetrated within them. Their mind and bodies became agitated. First, the mind became very strongly agitated by the changes arising from bliss. Then the body became agitated with tears, hairs standing on end, and perspiration. Even though they had been practicing, then there's a dot, dot, dot here, so I guess the devotee who quoted this, maybe they cut this purport short. Even though they had been practicing contact with Brahman, the bliss of Bhagavan was more powerful because of its sweetness. So that's there. So they felt they by coming in contact with the lotus feet of the Lord, specifically the tulsi leaves and the fragrance coming from them, they experienced this change. So this whole program that Srila Prabhupada has set up, this whole process of Krishna consciousness, eternal process, is bringing about that change in the lives of the devotees, in the hearts of the world's misdirected civilization. So the more we dive into that program, the more everything is solved. We can be changed, just like the four Kumaras are changed. They go from impersonalists to pure devotees, acharyas, who are, they've got a whole sampradaya. So just like that, in a similar way, we can be changed by staying in touch with Krishna consciousness. And I was thinking that my spiritual master, he mentions how I forget exactly what it was in relation to, something happening or whatever, but sometimes devotees trim down certain things. There might be different programs that pop up around the country, and we want to make more devotees. So to make more devotees, since Krishna consciousness is difficult, we should make the process a little bit easier, and then more people can come. It can be more accessible to everybody. So maybe there can be like 5 a.m. Mangal Arti or 6 a.m. Mangal Arti. Or no Mangal Arti, you get up and then come to the Tulsi Puja, whatever. There's many different programs or many different adjustments people try to make. And some adjustments and whatever can be used in facilitating the propagation of Krishna consciousness in different places, or as people always like to say, different times, places, and circumstances. But the thing my Guru Maharaj was saying is that he wouldn't want to remove any of the things that Srila Prabhupada has already set up as the essentials for spiritual life, because he doesn't know which one of those is, he really needs to be Krishna conscious, and which other ones are not so important. And I thought that was such a nice point, because how are you going to know? I mean, the things we're doing are pretty far out, from compared to what we were doing before and everything we know about the world before, and things we're doing now are pretty far out. Like if I went inside of a vehicle and now I've got to fix the engine in a vehicle, and I'm sure there are some extra screws in there on any machine. There's some things that are a little extra extraneous and not so much needed. But with my knowledge, I'm not going to be able to know which thing in there
It's just a little extra weight on the car, and I can do without it. I'm gonna, do the job according to how they said to do it, and then put all the parts back how it was, because I don't know which ones are so needed and which ones are less needed. So in the same way, we're coming from whatever life we were in before. Now somehow or other, we're getting purified. We're thinking in the we're beginning to think in the proper way, see things in the proper conception, that okay, everything is actually meant for Krishna's enjoyment. Krishna's the enjoyer, and we're the enjoyed. He's the seer, and we're the seen. We're meant to engage in his service. We're his servants. So let me try to satisfy Krishna's senses rather than the, nasty senses of this body. So, we're starting to think in a Krishna conscious way. And what did we like do, leading up to that throughout the whole time? We started running around the plant in the morning and, started singing some songs at 3:30 a.m. And, all these things that, for me to try to figure it out with my mundane mind, what's making it all click and why, it's kind of a stretch to think that, I can figure all of that out. So he was saying, uh, yeah, I don't know which ones I can do without, so I want to make sure I have all of them. And I think he was one of the things. Anyway, whenever it comes to stuff with Tulsi Maharani, I always remember that quote. So I don't know if it was in relation to that or not. But so the mercy of Tulsi Devi is extremely powerful, and the Kumaras are getting this. Um, So by coming in contact with the Tulsi leaves, they had this change of heart, and they go from impersonalists to devotees. Um, I guess just to tie up that point, yeah, that's all I was mentioning is that by coming in contact with the process of Krishna consciousness that Srila Prabhupada's laid out, we also experience a change, and that change continues and is also, we can uh, maintain that position of making a gradual change or a gradual advancement in Krishna consciousness by sticking to that process very closely and not trying to change that process too much. So they were impersonalists before, and they actually came in contact with this fragrance of the tulsi leaves. And earlier in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada was mentioning how tulsi makes a special smell actually early in the morning. So you're not going to smell it if you're going to the 6 a.m. Mangal Arati or whatever it is. But Tulsi makes a special smell early in the morning, which is only perceivable to advanced transcendentalists, he explains. So the Kumaras, they have some, intense qualification here. They're not just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. They're definitely not those guys. They're Sanatana, Sanaka, Sanat, and Sanandana Kumara. They're special personalities who can fly around the universe in the form of babies. They go wherever they want. So they're very qualified, and they had the somehow or other they had the qualification or the good fortune to be able to perceive this transcendental fragrance. And once it entered their nostrils, their whole existence changed. Um, and they, instead of being interested in the impersonal conception, Srila Prabhupada says they thought it wise to become devotees. If you get a higher taste, what's the point of sticking with a lower taste? Of course, anything related to Krishna is absolute. So even his Brahman effulgence and anything coming from him is transcendental and worshipable and all of these things. But even higher than that, actually, is the personal feature of the Lord. That's as high as it gets. It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is recognized in the features of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And it's that verse saves the best for last, Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So once they saw the personality of the Lord, they were interested. They were no longer interested in being absorbed in Brahmananda, because Brahmananda isn't actually that much Ananda. It's not that blissful. Someone might think, okay, I'm in the material world and it's, there's so many problems. So I want to be spiritual and I just want to be absorbed in spiritual peace and just know that, I'm a soul and all of these things. But Brahmananda is always described as actually being hellish to devotees because in this impersonal liberation, there's no room for service. How are you going to serve someone if you don't know them personally? Or how are you going to serve I was going to say, how are you going to serve someone that's not a person, but that doesn't exactly work because behind that effulgence, there is a person. It's coming from a person, Krishna. But how are you going? There's no relationship there in this impersonal oneness liberation. I mean, there is a relation still. It's nothing's ever totally impersonal or void or any of these things. There is still a relationship, but it's neutral. So if something's neutral, just like Srila Prabhupada, I'm pretty sure he's quoted as saying milk means it's either or milk is like very hot. Or if he was something about him taking food is like it's either got to be cold or it's hot. No, he wouldn't take cold food. There's some quote, something about him, something that has to be cold or hot. I forget what. Anyway, but milk means hot milk. There's a quote like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Chandan's nodding his head. I think you're saying
Sweet
something.
rice. Sweet rice,
Ah,
probably sweet
can't hear
rice.
you. One second. Let me turn it up. Did you say something?
I think sweet rice.
Sweet rice. It's either cold or it's hot.
Yeah, I mean, we have it cold and then you can also have it hot. I'm sure that's an example we could use.
Okay, we've got enough things to piece together something bona fide here. Avadu Chandraprabhu says in Nectar Devotion, it says sweet rice says the sweet rice, the colder it is, the better. And then we've also heard some quote where Prabhupada says milk means hot, hot to the touch. So in that, sipping hot, sipping
This
hot.
is live stream on
So in
YouTube
that
also.
regard, it's either got to be if neutral is not that ecstatic, is what I'm saying. If sweet rice is cold, it's very good. If milk is hot, it's very nice. But neutral things, it's not that ecstatic. So in the same way, this neutral relationship in the impersonal Brahman, there's not that much bliss. But when Bhagavan is there, there's the bliss. Just like we hear that the soul is Satchit Ananda. So it's eternal, it's ever existing, it's chit, it's full of knowledge, it's fully conscious, and it's Ananda, it's blissful. That's who we really are. We're not the body, which is blood, pus, urine, stool, bones. We're actually Satchit Ananda, eternal knowledge, bliss, servant of Krishna. So when these different phases of realizing the Supreme Lord come about through the process of devotional service, the different degrees. In that first one, the Brahman realization that there's just Sat, it's just eternal. So they're just realizing, okay, I'm eternal, the Supreme Lord's eternal, there's some sort of oneness going on, everything's eternal, and they're just there as a soul, but there's no bliss there. But then when they realize the localized form of the Lord, then there's some bliss, and there's also the knowledge, the Sat and Chit. But then in the full spectrum, there's the personality of Godhead, and there's the bliss there. And why is there bliss? Because it takes two to tango. Or that song, it takes two to make a thing go right. It takes two to make it out of sight. So when there's two personalities, then there's actually bliss there. No one wants to be just alone. Like Srila Prabhupada would give this example in classes, saying that if no one was there in the temple room, or like in the wherever he is, then it wouldn't be very blissful. But all these devotees are here, so it's actually very blissful because there's some relationship. So like that, the Kumars became established in their eternal service relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there's the real Ananda. So they wanted to stick with that after that. As Srila Prabhupada said in the end of the purport, becoming a servitor of the lotus feet of the Lord is better than becoming one with the Lord. So even though so many people are interested in impersonal ideas of spirituality today, uh, it's better to actually be a servitor of the Lord. They'll actually be way more blissful and more, spiritual and all of these things if they engage in the Lord's service. So if we explain that to them, they can also have a change of heart. If they just hear from Prabhupada's books, and if we explain some of the concepts therein to people who are interested in impersonal ideas of spirituality, they'll get a higher taste because it's better. It's more blissful. How much are you going to describe about a light? Sure, it's an eternal light. It's bright light. It's a pure light, or you can't describe it, or you're not supposed to describe it. So, yeah, it's an ecstatic light. That's awesome. But what if you knew where that light's coming from? And it's coming from a person who's so radiant that people are attracted just to the radiance of his body. So
It's way more ecstatic, and there's way more you can describe about such a person and hear about him. And he does so many pastimes. You know what? If we have the Krishna book, soon there's a Rama book also, made by Kirtanananda Swami. Soon we'll have a Balaram book, I've heard. So there's these ecstatic books, and you hear all the ecstatic pastimes of the Lord. But so far, I haven't heard of anyone writing the Brahman book. It's like you don't hear about the personal Brahman effulgence, taking down different demons, or the women all become attracted to it, or whatever it is. Although that might be cool. But there is something in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita we hear of Gopa Kumar. He is doing his universal journey, and it's really interesting. And he's going through the layers of the universe. He goes outside the material universe, and he even goes to the impersonal Brahman. And but the thing is, even when he's there, somehow or other, uh, he still sees what's going on. He still sees that the individual souls are eternally individuals. And Krishna makes that point in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita when he tells Arjuna that there never was a time when you, nor I, nor all these kings did not exist, nor is there a time where any of us will ever cease to be. And in the purport to that, Srila Prabhupada explains that if Krishna is establishing the individuality of the soul and the Supreme Lord now, why is he going to contradict that later, just go back on it later? From the very beginning, he makes the point that there's you, there's me, everybody else. So he makes the point that the living entities are eternally individual, and even if they try to merge into this oneness that the Kumaras were absorbed in, they still maintain their individuality. And then there's hope, actually, that one day they'll be established in an even more blissful position as servitors of the Lord, like what happened with the Kumaras. And the example to describe this is that a green bird, you see it fly into a green tree, and it looks like it's become one. To your vision, it totally is one. You just see a green tree. But if you get closer, you'll see that green bird is still there individually, the tree is still there individually. So like this, the souls who get this impersonal moksha liberation, they're still individuals, and Gopakumar sees this in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. This is the Kumar's class. I'm talking about Gopakumar and the four Kumaras, and I also have Kumar in my name. Kumar Mela.
And Rishi Kumar.
Yeah. So that this Gopakumar, he sees in the Brahman effulgence, he sees individual souls, they're all there. And he also sees the Lord of the Brahman effulgence, some form of the Lord. There's still some form there of the Lord who's very effulgent. So he sees some form of the Lord there, who's the controller and the enjoyer, and he sees all the little servitor, impersonally liberated souls. But they couldn't see what's going on all around. They couldn't see that there's some relationship going on, around them. I don't remember all the it in detail, but they're in a neutral position as souls in the Brahman effulgence. And Gopa Kumar got out of there before he became Brahma Kumar. He didn't want to stick around and get you know, not fully merged, but almost merged, where the souls they're staying there, in that neutral position. And it's also not a permanent position, since it's not fully satisfying to the living entity. They have to come back down. So we hear that point over and over again in Prabhupada's books, that one may get absorbed in this moksha liberation, and then they come back down and take the posts of some sort of like a sannyasi or welfare worker or philanthropist, where they do something that's like in the mode of goodness or kind of spiritual, because they want some sort of relationship. They want to do some activity. But all those activities and relationships and everything is there in the spiritual world, and the Kumaras are getting a glimpse of that. So we see when the Lord uh, meets them personally, it's so ecstatic. There's so many exchanges that go on. The way that the Lord is speaking is incomprehensible. It's amazing. He's meaning so many things at one time. He's, doing so many activities at once. Just one of his activities solves so many different problems, or, creates so many ecstatic situations. So it's a really far out situation. And there's just all sorts of, variety, relationships, the beauty of the Lord, transcendental smells. It's just, everything's there, full. So it's a much more ecstatic situation. And yeah, the Kumaras
even though they were at a very high stage, now they've gotten to a higher stage by taking up the pure devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Are there any comments or questions or any discussion or anything?
I just thought about something you're mentioning. What's hot? Can you hear me, Hare Krishna?
Yeah, I can kind of. Let me see if there's a way to make this louder.
Maybe is it my
It's-
mic? Okay.
No, I don't think it's your mic. It's got it playing in like phone mode.
Ah,
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Here, just give
There's
me 10 seconds. I'm just gonna join it on my phone, and then it'll be louder.
You turn off phone mode?
I don't see a speaker option on yours. Okay, here I'm in now on mine. Okay. All right, we can hear you.
There's just a side point is that sweet rice is served hot because there's that pastime with the Brahmana who is like meditating
Oh,
on
yeah.
the Lord, and he wants to check it to see if it's too hot for the Lord, and he burns his finger, and then he comes out of his meditation and his finger's burnt.
Yeah.
I think that sweet rice could be. I mean, when it's cold, it's great, and when it's hot, it's also the Lord also takes it hot. Anyways, it's a
Yeah,
it's a side.
that's another ecstatic time when someone gets to come in contact with the Lord of Vaikunta in a far out way.
And I like that. Where was that you're reading from? That Tulasi she releases that aroma, especially in the morning.
Yeah, that's in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, wow.
It's in one of the purports. We read it in a class a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month and a half. I can try to find it. And Avadut Chandra Prabhu had something also.
The point you were making about neutrality, there's this phrase that Jesus gives in the Bible about how he doesn't want his disciples to be lukewarm. And there's some statement where he says, if you're hot or you're cold, I'll accept you. But he says, if you're lukewarm, I'll like spit you out or something like that. But it's kind of similar that, we shouldn't have he didn't want his disciples to have lukewarm faith. He was saying you should be really, sold out more or less. I was kind of making that connection somehow, but
Jesus comes through.
I was thinking about association and the different. You were saying how the Kumaras are exalted and they have their own sampradaya, and I was thinking about how we're associating. The Kumaras are some of the Mahajans, but I was thinking about how we're associating with them because they're acharyas. But if we started to associate with persons who were from the Kumara Sampradaya, it would be oh yeah, I'm going to take prasadam at the Kumara ashram today. It'd be Prabhu, what's going on? We're so strict in our association of Hare Krishna, sadhana, But I was just kind of thinking about how we're associated with them, these great personalities in the Bhagavatam, but in the real world, on with our feet on the ground is I don't think we'd be hanging out with different sampradayas and stuff like that. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about how we associate with Mahajans and the different sampradayas and stuff like that. But yeah.
I don't actually know how all of it goes down, inter-sampradaya association, but it does seem like there is some, bona fide and beneficial association that devotees in the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya take also with the Sri Sampradaya in some places, because both of them still have strength right now. But I've heard some things about how some of the other Sampradayas are a little bit it's hard to find it in any strong form these days.
It's a. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
That, we do associate with other sampradayas as long as they're bona fide and following the acharyas. So we can go to Sri Vaishnava temples and take prasadam there, and we can associate with them because they, come in the Ramanuja line and they're following strictly in that line. We should take their dust to their lotus feet. So they're Vaishnavas, and that's the point. Anything outside of the Vaishnavas, we don't associate with. But if the parampara is coming down, and they may, like Vishnu Chitta Prabhu was making that point, they may not be chanting 16 rounds, but if they're following the teachings that Acharyas laid out, then we are able to associate and take prasadam and whatever they cook, because they're pure Vaishnavas and they're endeavoring to become pure Vaishnavas. So one has to see. So one can go to the Sri Vaishnavas and associate and speak with them, and there's a lot of benefit one can get also. We have everything we need in Prabhupada's books, but there we see Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, so many conversations with some of the Sri Vaishnavas that he has, and that culture is so much prevalent, and there's so much to learn from that culture actually, in terms of maintaining a sampradaya for so many thousands of years. We don't really have that within our Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line. Our sampradaya was maintained in somewhat way, but a lot of it was also, the Gaudiya sampradaya was more or less lost. And there's only very few individuals keeping it going, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Lokanath Das Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur. But a lot of it was becoming diluted and didn't have its proper form. But whereas we see in the Sri Vaishnava's line, that was very prominent and everything was kept very nicely. Now it's slowly breaking down, I believe, also. But we, as Gaudiyas, first organized thing is we see with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and then Srila Prabhupada being in an international way. So we have so much to learn from them, and so we should associate with them if they're properly in the proper stance. At the same time, we should understand what the differences are in the line of Sri Vaishnavas and in the line of Gaudiya. And the mood is completely different. One of Aishwarya, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, we begin with that, but our mood is, to come to the platform of having these intimate, loving relationship with Krishna. That is general Gaudiya, is this Madhurya Bhav, this to relish that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. So we should understand the differences and see clearly how Gaudiya Sampradaya is giving the highest form of love of Godhead, but how the Sri Sampradaya and the Madhva Sampradaya and Kumar Sampradaya and the Rudra Sampradaya, they all have their bona fide things, and if they're bona fide devotees of that Sampradaya, we can associate with them. There is no problem.
Did you have anything? I don't know. This is like really like weird, and we're on this topic like other summer dies. And I just like brought this question. This may or may not be stupid, but I was thinking about the Udupi temple of Krishna and how it's run by Madhvas or Sri. I think it's Madhva.
Yeah.
And they are reverential. But I was wondering, well, I guess that'd be like Dwarka or something. I don't know. I was just wondering like how that works. Like, I guess I don't know.
They worship Krishna in Dwarka.
I guess I don't know because usually it's like Lord Ram or Lord Vishnu. I was wondering if they're worshiping Krishna in reverence, and like they're also aspiring not for like, Goloka Vrindavan, but they're aspiring for like Kunta, I guess. They would end up in Dwarka. I don't know. I was just wondering.
I don't have. That's more like Mahotsa Prabhu and Vishnujitta Prabhu. There is a Nimbarka Sampradaya, which is Nimbarka is
Vishnu Swami or Vallabhacharya.
Well, Nimbarka Sampradaya, I think it's Kumar Sampradaya.
Kumar, yeah.
Nimbarka, they have the Haveli and they worship Krishna in I think that's the Haveli they have in, we went in Charlotte when we did the Travel
Kumar. Yeah.
They worship Krishna in the mood of the young boy, and so he wakes up. They don't have Mangalarti. He wakes up at 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's far out.
But, it's bona fide because they're worshiping the Lord in that mood, and they follow that the whole way. So depends on the sampradaya. So it's not exactly. So we have to see and that they're following properly.
So many ways to worship Krishna.
What time is it?
9:20.
It's 9:20. Do you want me to read the next verse or?
No, it's fine. If you're finished, you can end.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.